Miss in for the first time since 2019, led by a roster of 10 seniors, and they will be scouting the first four in and look at this, San Diego State. They are going to face North Carolina.
Well, if anyone wants to know what everyone's going to be talking about after the show, North Carolina is your answer with that 1-12 quad one record. They got in because of their non-conference strength of schedule, which was the 5th strongest in the country, but that's going to be a big-time topic of conversation.
No question about it.
All right, welcome. Welcome to Fearless with Jason Whitlock. I am Jason Whitlock, your host. Thank you so much for joining me. Happy Monday. It's the day after Selection Sunday, and well, do we have a lot to talk about? Do we have a lot to talk about? And I'm going to begin with North Carolina, but I'm not going to end there. And so the first thing I'm going to need you guys to do is to help me out here. We got to get the clock going, and we got to get the screen going so I can see the teleprompter. Neither one, the clock nor the teleprompter, are on. So, Jack, hook me up there. But we're going to connect what's going on with North Carolina, what's going on with North Carolina making it into the NCAA tournament, and we're going to connect it to what Steve Alford, the head coach of Nevada, what he had to say about what's going on in all of college athletics, going on in college basketball. There is a connection here between what Steve Alford said and North Carolina making it into the NCAA tournament in an undeserved fashion. Steve Kim is also going to join me today, but I want to spend a little time unpacking that first. Steve, and we'll talk a little bit more about the NCAA tournament and the Selection Sunday and what Steve Alford had to say. But if you haven't seen the picture of Bill Belichick and his girlfriend, his sugar baby, on the beach, we'll play you that latest picture. And this isn't a midlife crisis. This isn't a late life crisis. I think Bill Belichick's going through a humiliation ritual, but Steve Kim and I will debate that. Jamar Chase and Tee Higgins, they got paid. They got paid. Was it smart what the Bengals did? They gave both of their receivers, I think, a combined together like $79 million a year in contract. Holy cow. Is that the right thing to do for Joe Burrow? And then ESPN reverted back to one of its favorite topics, why Caitlin Clark isn't as good as everyone thinks, and there's actually all these other women that are better than her. We'll get into that with butter as well. Before, I just want to explain to you guys why I'm looking so good, why I'm feeling so good, why I had this incredible weekend. It's because I put my foot down and said, hey, look, I'm not going to let life pass me by. I'm not going to just give up and say, oh, God, this inflammation and pain that I'm dealing with, you know what? I just got to start cutting these things out of my life because I'm too old, I'm too fat, I'm too this, I'm too that. Many of you are making compromised decisions about what you're doing with your life. Oh, I can't go on this long walk with my wife. Oh, I can't go hunting like I used to. Oh, I'm just going to stay here at home and not go out and hang out and just do the things that I used to take for granted because I've got too much pain and inflammation. You're living a compromised life. I have a solution for you. It's Relief Factor. It is definitely worth a try. It is incredibly helping me. As this weekend, I was back underneath that squat rack at 57 years old, squatting, a pretty decent amount of weight for me. I think I did 50 reps. And the reason I can do it is because I'm dealing with a lot less pain and inflammation since I've incorporated Relief Factor back into my daily routine. You guys can do the same thing. Relief Factor is a daily supplement that helps your body fight pain by fighting inflammation, which is the source of most pain in our bodies and a lot of disease. It's 100% drug-free, developed by doctors to help reduce or eliminate pain. More than 1 million people have tried Relief Factor's Quick Start Kit, and 70% of them have gone back and reordered. Feel better every day, and you'll live better. Trying Relief Factor is easy. Get their 3-week quick start for only $19.95. That's less than $1 a day. Call 1-800-4RELIEF. That's 1-800-4RELIEF. That's the number 4 in relief. 1-800-4RELIEF. Or visit relieffactor.com. Join me. Expand your life back to what's normal and what you should be doing. Go on that long walk with your wife. Go hunting with your friends. Do the stuff you thought, hey, I can't do that anymore. I just got too many aches and pains. Yes, you can. All right, let me go into what the big story yesterday, this weekend. The NCAA tournament is set. The first 4 kick off, I believe, tomorrow on Tuesday. Then they play again on Wednesday. Everybody yesterday talking about North Carolina that had a very mediocre season, and most people thought, no way in heck North Carolina gets into the NCAA tournament. And lo and behold, yesterday, they get announced into the NCAA tournament. Most people believe like West Virginia deserved that spot. Here's West Virginia's record against tourney teams is 5-8. North Carolina's is 2-10. Record versus top 25 opponents: West Virginia 4-4, North Carolina 1-8. Record versus quad 1 teams, that's the top 25%. West Virginia 6-10, UNC 1-12. Records versus quad 1 and 2. West Virginia 10-13, North Carolina 9-12. North Carolina has a loss to one of the lower quad 3 teams. West Virginia has none. Somehow UNC gets a tourney bid and people's heads are exploding. Let's start with SOT number 2. I want to show you Bubba Cunningham, who's the athletic director for North Carolina. His first job as a full-time head athletic director was at my alma mater, Ball State. I knew Bubba very well then. Bubba's someone I respect a tremendous amount. Bubba hired my favorite Ball State coach, Brady Hoke. I participated in that whole process. I know Bubba's a high-integrity guy. He's the head of the NCAA selection committee. He took a lot of grief. Here's his explanation, along with Keith Gill, about how UNC got into the tournament. Play the clip.
So, Bubba, congratulations on being done, first and foremost. I am very familiar with all of the protocols and procedures inside that committee room. You guys go to great lengths to make sure there are no conflicts of interest. You are the athletic director of the University of North Carolina in your day job, so it's going to be a natural question for people who don't know all those procedures to ask whether North Carolina may have gotten a little bit of an advantage that their AD is a chair. So I'm going to invite you to answer that question, and then maybe if Keith could shed some light on that discussion.
Well, thanks, Seth. And obviously, I'm going to defer that to Keith. But, you know, all the policies and procedures were followed, and Keith can address exactly how North Carolina was discussed, because I was not in the room for any of that.
Yeah, thanks, Bubba. And Seth, I appreciate the question. As the vice chair, I managed all the conversations that we had about North Carolina, and we had quite a few. Our policies require the AD of any school to recuse themselves and actually leave the room for those discussions, and they're not allowed to participate in any vote as well. So we followed those, had lots of discussions about North Carolina. You know, Saturday night we took our final vote, and we voted in 4 teams in the field on Saturday night, and we had a contingency vote. And the contingency vote, that was the last team in the field. And it was based on Memphis and UAB. If Memphis won that game, then that was going to free up a spot in the tournament, and that was going to be North Carolina. If UAB had won, then Memphis was going to be in the tournament, UAB would have been in the tournament, and North Carolina would have been the first team out. And so that process played out today. Memphis won, and that put North Carolina in the field.
The final team into the tournament, we know it's North Carolina. There's some breakdown of all these experts that do these tournament projections. I think there's 111 of them, I think, or maybe it's 137. But West Virginia was picked to be in the tournament by 111 of these guys. Indiana, 90. Texas, 50. Xavier, 30. North Carolina, just 27 of the experts. had projected them into the tournament, and somehow they get the very last spot. The reaction was instantaneous of people like, hey, this is crazy. What are we doing here? Here's Sean Farham. This is SOT number 5 with one of the typical reactions to North Carolina getting into the field. Play the clip.
Played 11 games against other tournament teams. They have won 2 against UCLA and American. All right, Sean, when the field came out and the brackets were set, let's just start with, like, when you first saw it, what was your overall impression? What stood out?
Well, one of it was that has to be a typo. North Carolina can't possibly be in this NCAA tournament field because they had ample opportunities to improve their resume. The fact that West Virginia is not with 6 quad 1 wins and North Carolina is with 1, and if they thought so highly of the ACC, how is an 18-win Louisville team an 8 seed? So if you don't value the ACC with Louisville, who won 18 games in conference play and had a great non-conference, what you're telling me is North Carolina scheduled its way in because it had the 5th hardest non-conference schedule. The problem is they only won one of those games that mattered. So, you know, when you talk about 2 wins against the field, that's not good enough. That's not good enough. And there are other teams I thought were more rewarded for this. And this is an example of why we don't need to expand the tournament. Because we're looking at this resume and going, yes, this is a tournament, the NCAA tournament team. To me, it's about being elite. This North Carolina team is not elite.
I don't think you could say it any clearer than that, any more accurately than that. And I think we now have to go, well, how did this happen? Why is North Carolina in the tournament? And this connects to what Steve Alford was talking about, and I believe his comments came out on Friday. We're not going to play those just yet. I'm going to give you the answer before I expand the problem out to where Steve Alford did. But this is a television programming decision, period, end of story. Now, if I added a new sentence to that, television programming decision, period. The next thing I would say, in addition to being a sports are in bed with gambling companies decision, those are the 2 factors going on with North Carolina and Texas making the NCAA tournament. Texas, I believe, plays on Tuesday night in the first 4. These first 4 games are usually pretty boring. They don't draw a big audience. It's a Tuesday night. Hey, what could give us a little juice? Well, Texas has a big national brand and following, much bigger than West Virginia. We can get into those Dallas markets with Texas. We can open up the state of Texas to watching our Tuesday night NCAA first 4 basketball games with Texas. That's why Texas is there. North Carolina, quite possibly because of Michael Jordan, the most iconic brand in college basketball. And I know Duke has to be in consideration. UCLA used to be in consideration. But Michael Jordan is the biggest thing in basketball. And that Carolina blue, perhaps other than Duke, draws eyeballs. We're playing on Wednesday night with North Carolina. Maybe they'll add some eyeballs to what we do on Wednesday night. And we dang sure know that North Carolina and Texas will tap into audiences willing to bet on them. This is about television ratings and gambling. This is where we are in college athletics. Let's keep it 1,000% real. This is about TV ratings and gambling. And look, maybe TV ratings always played a major role in the NCAA selection deal and the whole deal. But now it plays an even more pronounced role because men's college basketball, quite frankly, is struggling. Their entire apparatus is built on the NCAA tournament. The regular season is not nearly as consequential as it used to be, doesn't draw television ratings the way it used to. And so they push all their eggs into the NCAA tournament basket. All of them. And they need, on Tuesday night, Wednesday night, before the tournament really kicks off, they need to juice those numbers. And they've done it with North Carolina and Texas. And as it relates to the gambling element and how involved the gambling companies and who's, gambling companies are dang near like Big Pharma in terms of their influence over television, particularly sports television. Who's going to draw more gamblers? Oh, everybody's disrespecting North Carolina. I'm going to bet North Carolina against San Diego, and then I think they may play Ole Miss in round 2. They're going to drive far more gamblers than Xavier, than West Virginia, than Indiana even. And Indiana used to have a big brand, but they killed Bobby Knight in 2000, and Indiana's brand has gone in the toilet. It doesn't have nearly the national following that it used to. Certainly pales in comparison to North Carolina and the fact that Michael Jordan played there and that Carolina Blue and all the success they've had. From Dean Smith to Roy Williams, we know what this is about. And Steve Alford really unpacked and expanded this. Now this, obviously he's making his comments before the selection committee, but he's talking about and spelling out the problems within college athletics and how all substance and integrity have been removed from college athletics. And you can see it in what we just witnessed in terms of North Carolina getting an undeserved spot in the NCAA tournament. Texas probably getting an undeserved spot. That's all driven by television ratings. Before I go into Steve Alford and expand this, I just want to take care of my great friends because I've really appreciated these guys. They sent me a nice box shipment to my home. I've been enjoying the steaks. I've been enjoying the chicken. I've even, because I'm only eating once a day, I've even taken the time to enjoy the French fries, the dessert. It's Omaha Steaks has been a great friend to me, and they should be a great friend to you. From legendary steaks to classic comfort food, bring home the exceptional handcrafted flavor and convenience of Omaha Steaks. Omaha Steaks offers unrivaled quality and variety, and every bite is backed by their 100% guarantee. Every steak is perfectly aged to maximize tenderness and hand-cut by master butchers in America's heartland. Grass-fed, grain-finished beef has more marbling for exceptional flavor and is the choice of steakhouses and professional chefs around the world. The fan-favorite filet mignon has earned the coveted distinction USDA certified tender. 5 generations of uncompromising quality backed by an unconditional 100% money-back guarantee. Omaha Steaks has been America's original butcher since 1917, a family-owned company with more than 100 years of expertise in the meat industry. They also carry mouth-watering burgers, chicken, pork, seafood, dessert, and easy-to-prepare comfort food. Don't miss the semi-annual sale at Omaha Steaks. Visit omahasteaks.com for 50% off site-wide, and for an extra $30 off, use my promo code FEARLESS at checkout. That's 50% off at omahasteaks.com and an extra $30 off with my promo code FEARLESS at checkout. Support Omaha Steaks. These guys are supporting us, our worldview. We love these guys. It's great food. Great steaks, great chicken, great pork, great comfort foods, great French fries. Omaha Steaks. Let me return to Steve Alford, who made some, after I think Nevada got eliminated in the conference tournament, he started talking about what's going on in NCAA athletics and in college basketball, and people had a strong reaction to it, some critical of him. Hey, why are you complaining about this now, about the players getting paid and name, image, and likeness? Why weren't you weren't complaining when the coaches were all getting overpaid? But anyway, let's start with SOT number 3, Steve Alford, on the changing role and focus during the transfer portal and name, image, and likeness.
5 years ago, I wasn't, on conversations saying how much you want to be paid. Never thought that would happen in college basketball. And I've always been a big proponent as the game and money has evolved and changed. I've never been one that said I don't believe student athletes shouldn't be paid. But the way it is now is ridiculous. It's utterly ridiculous. And it's changed our game. And so you got to adapt. We got to adapt, but every coach, every handshake I have now before games, that's brought up. Every game. Me and the opposing coach are going to talk about portal issues. And, where's academics at? Like, I've talked to my compliance guys. What's APR anymore? You can't control APR. It's a JUCO. You're going to replace 8, 9 guys to a roster every year. The travel time that is across the country in these leagues. It makes no sense for that to be our model, but that is our model. So more than us, do we have to evolve as coaches? Yeah, we got to evolve of how now we recruit. Like, it used to be, hey, what's my degree going to look like? What's your facilities look like? What's your relationship with the team look like? Are you there for all practices? Are you a coach that dives into relationships and you're going to care for my child? You might as well throw all that stuff out because the only question they're concerned about is what they're getting paid in the portal. And to me, that's a terrible model for an 18-year-old.
He's 1,000% right. There will be people, coaches making $3, $4, $5, $10 million a year. Do they deserve it? I never heard him complain about that. I think that's a legitimate point, that if coaches had been more aggressive years ago, and I'm talking about from Bobby Knight, who Steve Alford played for, to Dean Smith, years ago, Mike Krzyzewski, years ago, coaches should have gotten aggressive about, hey, look, this system we've concocted isn't sustainable, and we're going to end up in total chaos unless we figure out a way to appropriately compensate the athletes who are worthy of compensation. I was writing about this 20 years ago, offering up ideas and solutions. When I worked at AOL Sports, this had to be 15, 20 years ago. I wrote a series of pieces on suggestions on, hey, here's how they should approach paying these athletes and, how they should get the NBA involved. There should be a partnership because these guys are developing the next NBA stars. But no one did anything. Everyone just sat around and collected their checks, and maybe occasionally they'd make a little small comment about, hey, paying the athletes. But this all should have been addressed years ago. John Thompson, Nolan Richardson, because most of you, or there will be some of you all, not most of you all, will all look at these white coaches, and no one had a complaint when it was the white coaches making all the. Black coaches feel the exact same way as Steve Alford. They've got the wild, wild west, and what many people don't understand as it relates to coaching, they do understand as it relates to young people. Developing young people is one of the most stressful, trying things any human being does. And I'm talking about mom and dad, to coaches, to teachers, to ministers. To developing young people is stressful, and young people will wear you out. I was a headache as a college athlete. Headache. I have great empathy for my coaches in having to deal with me. It's hard. And do I think coaches are overpaid? Yes, they are. But what I'm his entire team, because you're trying to impose a point of view, a worldview that will benefit them down the road. And most young people are into instant gratification. They all want to be heard. They all think they're smarter than the coaches. And so what Steve Alford's not saying here, which is commonplace in the coaching profession, you get to the end of this year, and this is even back before name, image, and likeness. You get to the end of the year, and the coach doesn't like his players, and the players don't like the coach. And same thing happens in parenting. There'll be these very difficult years. 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21-year-olds, where the parents, they're at war with their kids if they're raising them properly. It's not all peaches and cream. And there will be stretches, 2-3 months, maybe 2-3 years, where parent and child don't like each other because they're at that kind of war. They got that much worldview conflict. That's very healthy. Me and my father spent many years at each other's throats. He didn't like some of my friends. He didn't like the way I dressed. He didn't, the things he didn't like about me. He thought I was too late. We were at war. And he was right, but we went to war. Same thing goes on with a coach and an athlete and a team environment. You get to the end of the season, and now that's all been magnified immensely by name, image, and likeness. Because you're sitting there as Steve Alford's probably 60 years old now, somewhere in there. And he's looking at Nevada give 18, 19, 20, 21-year-olds thousands of dollars. And they're blowing it on tattoos and gold chains. And that just wears on you. And even though you may have been a kid and done some of the same dumb stuff, but now with adult eyes and the scales are moved off your eyes, you're like, holy cow. This guy is blowing his money on gold chains, tattoos, some car that's a depreciating deal. He's getting his hair done. He's paying for some girlfriend to get her hair done, her nails done. He's blowing all of this money, and then he's coming in to me demanding more and more and more. And Steve Alford's like, man, I played for Bobby Knight and IU, and yeah, we had some perks around Bloomington, but we may do with a lot less than what you're getting. And actually, it was part of my development to make do with a lot less than what we're giving you. And so he's not lying. It's across the board. Coaches with these players demanding more and more money, hitting the transfer portal as soon as there's any adversity. And Steve Alford sitting there going, you know how much adversity I dealt with every day with Bobby Knight? And you guys can't take what I'm dishing out? A very frustrating process. This is a bad, corrupt system we built. And then I thought the second part of his answer or explanation or comments was even more powerful. Let's play that clip.
Because truth be told then, a lot of 18 and 19-year-olds are raising family members now. And that's not what you go off to college for. That's just not. And so that's frustrating because I don't like our model at all. I don't know how that's going to change now that the genie's out of the bottle, but you asked me a pertinent question, and I don't like the model that we currently have because it's not name, image, and likeness. That's not what it is. There's not that many college players that have that eval as a name, image, and likeness. Most of them are getting what they're getting before they ever produce, and that's not what you should have to produce, then you receive. It's a bad lesson. And we shouldn't be sending kids off to college academically or in our profession to teach them bad models for when they're 25 and 26. Like I got 5 players now. NIL's done in 2 months. What happens to them? Are they going to be able to handle the real world now after having NIL for a couple of years at Nevada or wherever they've been? Are they going to really be prepared to handle the things that, oh, I'm not getting that money. I have to go earn that money. We're not really teaching them that. And I think that's something that people way above me have to really look at because the NCAA and collegiate athletics should be about teaching life lessons, period, through athletics.
Nails it here. And it's never discussed. Never discussed. I have brought it up. I have brought it up that these kids are now peaking economically in college at 18, 19, 20 years old. And most of them won't play in the NBA. high percentage of them won't play overseas. They're going to enter the workforce after being spoiled and pampered and living this dream life and driving an expensive car and buying gold chains when they want and tattooing themselves up. And then all of a sudden, now I got to go enter the real world and take a job at State Farm or to take a job at Geico or to take some entry-level job that will be a lot less money than I was earning as a college athlete. And the money I was earning as a college athlete, not only did an agent get a percentage of it, not only did the government and taxes get a percentage of it, I got people in my family that look to me at 18, 19 years old as if I'm the primary provider for the family. Now my growth and development have been stunted because I'm in a role where I don't get to focus on my own personal development. I'm the provider for my family. And I've got stress. I got aunties and uncles and cousins, or I got mama and daddy leaning on me for financial support. They're not allowed to be kids. They're not getting to experience what I was able to experience. I just got to be a stupid kid that argued with his coaches. I wasn't negotiating with my family about what kind of a cut of this money should they get. This is, and then when you peak at this early age economically, and you step out into the real world and go, oh man, I'm back at ground zero. I got to start at $40 or $50 or $60,000, and I got to show up and work someplace every single day to get this money. And it's not just from me playing basketball, something that I love. And you've developed a lifestyle. You got a car that you like driving, a style of car. You like to dress a certain way. And that's how you end up baiting guys into, hey, how can I cut corners? I knew guys, and I'm not going to name them, maybe. I've already named one, Joe Harvey, that played with me at Ball State. Drug kingpin in Fort Wayne, Indiana for a long time, ended up getting assassinated by some south of the border cartel guys. I got another former teammate, not gonna name him, but he's already done like 10, 15 years for drug dealing. Now he's back incarcerated, just got arrested in the last 6 months. And I can remember the guy said, if I don't make it to the NFL, I'm going to be a drug dealer. And that's what he did. So now you got guys, I would hate if either one of these guys, if they had been making $100,000, $200,000 in college, and then they don't meet their pro aspirations, and now all of a sudden it's about, hey, how can I cut corners to live this life that I'm used to living? We're setting these kids up for failure. There was a way, and again, neither me nor Steve Alford are talking about, hey, let's don't compensate these guys. We're talking about how do you properly compensate them? How do you attach the compensation you're giving to them to attach it to loyalty to the school that's providing for you, attach it to academic performance, attach it to on-field performance, and attach it to, hey, look, when you graduate from this university, here's a lump sum payment, job well done. Rather than, how can I give some Travis Hunter $1.5 million this year? There was a way to do this, to incentivize good behavior, to incentivize development and maturity, to incentivize them staying in college. And that's how which would benefit the NBA and would benefit college basketball. But we never explored any of that because no one ever wanted to actually deal with the problem that Walter Byers, the modern-day architect of the NCAA, a conservative white guy from Kansas, in his memoir, he called the NCAA system a plantation. White conservative dude from Kansas, modern-day architect of the NCAA. He wrote it in his memoir, I think that came out in the 90s, early 2000s at the latest. Like, hey, man, this is like a plantation system. This isn't correct. We got to figure out a way to compensate these athletes because the coaches and administrators, everybody else is getting rich off this. And so there was plenty of opportunity to address this properly and build a system that didn't create the kind of chaos we have now with the transfer portal and just throwing money at kids and all these, well, I didn't get the money they promised me and all. There was a way to build a legitimate system. We didn't do it. There was no resolve to do it. We just let the problems persist until it was way too late to do anything about it. And now we're living in this state of total chaos and total corruption. And that's how, again, because there's been so much neglect and so little addressing of the problems. If they had addressed these problems 25, 30 years ago, college basketball would still be very healthy. Players would stay 3 and 4 years. There wouldn't be the desperation of, oh, we got to expand the tournament because our TV ratings are so cratering that, you know, the women's final championship game actually drew larger ratings than the men last year. When you don't address a problem, you end up having to make panicked decisions that end up hurting your product in the long haul, and that's what we've done. Steve Alford, 1,000% correct here. You can, he should have said this years ago. He didn't have a problem when the coaches were making money. Legitimate complaint. Doesn't diminish the truth that he unpacked. College athletics, football's got problems too, same problems, but it's really pronounced in college basketball. And we did this through neglect. Hear no evil, see no evil, speak no evil. Hey, let's just keep writing books and writing college. Hey, they got to expand this. We got to have playoffs here. We got to do this. We got to do that. We got to make more and more and more money. We don't have to actually develop the athletes. The only thing I'll say here, and I'll land the plane and move on, we'll bring Steve Kim into the discussion, is the only thing at this point that would contradict anything I've said here is that what colleges are offering in education at this point is so Marxist, communist, anti-American that I almost don't want the kids incentivized to get that bogus communist education that our major universities are offering. It's that whole, everything about colleges and it's all corrupt. And so the fact that they have come up with a corrupt system shouldn't be surprising. Corruption is what colleges do at this point. And so we shouldn't be surprised. And Steve Alford and some of these coaches, that's why I respect Jay Wright for saying, peace out. This ain't what I'm here for. Some of these literally, Steve Alford, all these guys have made enough money. You know what they should do? They should go coach Little League basketball. And again, not high school basketball, Little League basketball. And I know that's been ruined to some degree as well. You can't take any Little League basketball court without hearing that profane, demonic rap music. But at least you got young kids that will listen to you because they're really needy, and it's not as corrupt as high school and college and professional basketball have become. Anyway, I'm landing the plane there. we're going to bring Steve Kim into the discussion. And, this is a perfect segue into me talking to you about Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the best place to get real money sports action. With more than 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings, Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 1,000 times your cash. Run your game all season long on Prize Picks. On Prize Picks, you can mix and match player projections from different sports, combine your favorite basketball players with players from baseball, hockey, esports, and much more. Sign up today and get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. Don't miss your chance to cash in as the league's best fight for playoff positioning. Now let's see what Mama Whitlock's picking. Let's cue up the intro.
Mama Whitlock, put your line up. Mama Whitlock, put your line up. Pick more, pick less. Run your game, you gotta be fearless. Lock it in. Mama Whitlock, put your line up. Prize Picks.
Yep, Joyce Whitlock watches more sports, bigger sports fan than me, my mother. Tonight, she's got some NBA action. She's starting with her hometown Indiana Pacers. Tyrese Halliburton, less than 20.5 points. Mama taking the under on Tyrese Halliburton, the Pacers' best player. Luka Doncic, more than 9.5 rebounds. Hey, I don't like that pick at all, but my mother's got a feeling. No LeBron James, maybe he will. Devin Booker, more than 25.5 points. I like that. The Suns are kind of desperate. Devin needs to put up some points. Download the app today. Use the promo code FEARLESS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Again, just download the app and use the promo code to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game. Steve Kim, next. Men, it's time to rise. Our country, our faith, our future, all under attack. I'm bringing the boldest voices to Nashville. Roll Call 3.0 is your call to action. Join me, join Tucker, and let's take a stand together. May 2nd and 3rd in Nashville. I am Jason Whitlock, your host.
Went without so that he could give you an abundant life. Now it's time for you to evade the ego trip so that someone else can live better. Amen.
It's necessary that we decide to become men of character, of godly intent.
He gives power to the faint, and to them that have no might he increases strength. Even you shall faint and be weary. Young men shall utterly fall. Jason, I know you called it to preach off, but I feel like preaching up in here right about now.
모두 다 빨리 박수 쳐 기다리지 말고 서둘러 Reason that I'm back is to feed you raps I see that you are 배불러 So fly
All right, welcome back. Time for some Korean co-sale. Steve Kim. Steve, I know you've been listening to me rant and rave. I'm going to let you say, where do you want to start? With North Carolina entering the tournament or Steve Alford's complaints about name, image, and likeness? Pick your poison.
Well, since it is my show, and good Monday to everyone out there, including yourself, Mr. Whitlock, we'll continue the discussion with Coach Alford. And Jason, I want to repeat myself, and he's absolutely right. Steve Alford, when he talks about the NIL not being what it was intended to be, I remember the refrain used to be that if you were Tim Tebow, if you were the Fab Five, if you were Reggie Bush during your college days and your number was very popular and millions of people were wearing your jersey or had the baggy shorts like they did at Michigan, that you should be able to profit off every sale of that said paraphernalia or create your own merch or be able to do autograph signings, which basically ended or got Johnny Manziel in trouble. Now it's just pay for play. That is the reality of it. It is now just pay for play. And there are so I still follow football recruiting because I'm still a diehard to a certain degree. And it's amazing that all these high school players are now saying, well, they have a great NIL package. And I'm thinking to myself, outside of morons like me that still care about this, nobody knows who you are. I mean, you should at least, I don't know, have one practice before we start saying, wow, that's going to be an iconic guy that's going to have his jersey retired. But they talk about the NIL package. And I can't relate this to Miami basketball, believe it or not. 2 years ago, Jim Larinaga, all-time great coach in my view, he took George Mason and the U to Final Four. That's unbelievable, right? Well, 2 years later, he's out of the business because from what I was told and what I've read, he could not handle the NIL demands of the players. Basically, everybody wanted to renegotiate their deals or they were going to transfer. And he said, you know what, I'm old. I'm good. I'm done. So now they hire a new coach, the associate head coach at Duke, Jai Lucas. Looks like a very bright prospect. And get this, Jason, as soon as he was hired, I assumed he was going to wait till Duke's season ended. No, he just left the job a week ago, and I was asking why. Doesn't he want to fill out his commitment? They said, no, he's got to get started on recruiting and the whole NIL deal. And so this thing has completely changed. Jason, in my view, when the NIL is done properly the way it was supposed to, I do not have an issue with it. I believe if you're an iconic All-American level player, you should have the right to monetize off your own name and create a brand. What it's become is they'll pay for play. Now, here's the other issue, Jason. I believe the current NIL system with the unlimited transfers and the transfer portal, I believe you could have one but not both. Because back in your day, Jason, if you wanted to transfer, you automatically had to sit out a year, and that would automatically make a young, disgruntled Jason Whitlock said, forget it. I'm just going to stay. Right? Isn't that the truth, Jason? That whole threat made you say, I'm going to stay here at Ball State.
There's no question about it that, and look, it shouldn't be that easy just to team hop. The adversity, and I experienced some real adversity at Ball State. It made me a better person. I didn't realize it at the time. I felt like, it was unfair. But as an adult, I'm like, holy cow, thank God I went through that. Because I watched people in my profession early on in my newspaper career, man, they'd run into some headwind and some adversity, and they'd just fall apart. And they couldn't handle it, where it was nothing to me because I dealt with some. And it's like, we don't want kids to go through adversity. We don't want them to have to, you blew the $20 your mom sent you or your dad sent you, and now you got to eat macaroni and cheese all week. We don't want kids to go through that. I'm glad I went through that. I really am. And so I think Alfred's making great points here. What do you say to the people that are like, he wasn't complaining when the coaches were getting overpaid. Now he's complaining that the players are.
Yeah, it's valid, but what's that old phrase? Two things can be true. I think coaches, and I'm going to relate this to football. Every football coach realizes at the end of the year, I'm going to lose about 20 to 25 players, and I have to recruit and bring in approximately that same amount. I think that's a fair part of the job. I don't think anyone signed up to re-recruit 85 to 100 players every single season, Jason. I mean, come on, that's a little bit ridiculous. I read a book about 2 months ago. I think it was called Fear No Man. It was about the building of the late 80s Washington Huskies under Don James in 1991. They were the co-national champions and the second best team in the country behind the Miami Hurricanes. And I was reading about the journey of this program. And there were some...
Steve has frozen up. I think I was at that 1991. No, I wasn't. I think maybe it was the next year. Washington ended up playing Michigan, I think, in the Rose Bowl. But I remember those Don James teams because they had Steve Ettman, a defensive lineman. But we'll reconnect with Steve here. Yeah. Well, Steve, go ahead and pick up your point about Don James in Washington.
There were at least 2 or 3 players like Ed Cunningham who basically said, I wanted to transfer. But they said, I didn't want to sit out a year. And they all said it in retrospect, best thing that happened to me. All my roots are in Washington. We grew together. I have a co-national championship ring. And without that threat, it is so easy just to pack your bags up and leave. And Jason, by the way, Washington and Michigan played back-to-back Rose Bowls together in 92 and 93, just for the record. But Emtman was in the 92 game, one of the most dominant players I've ever seen. But here's another thing, Jason, and I know you're going to have now pro ball. And you know what? We're going to do multi-year contracts, not just a letter of intent, not just a year-to-year, semester to semester, scholarship renewal, multiple-year contracts. What do you think?
I think that may be the only quick fix solution that would actually be sustainable. It's not what I would want to do, but it may be necessary. And I would just remove these kids from school, and they're just entertainment for the school and a vehicle to drive money for the school. And if when they've exhausted their playing experience, that I would say, hey, and if you want to go to college now at age 23, 24, we'll pay for that as well. But yeah, I think they should allow guys 6 years of eligibility. We just went through that with all. Yeah. We got. Who's the quarterback at Vanderbilt? Yeah, who's the quarterback at Vanderbilt that isn't he in like his 7th, 8th season? Yeah.
Well, look, I mean, Miami had a guy on his 9th year, or third tight end. He was on his 9th year. He's like the Blutarski of football.
Yeah.
I have a question, though. Be honest. Let's say you had righted the ship at Ball State. You are now a pillar of that football team, one of the team leaders. Let's say your senior year, a Big Ten school, a Purdue or an Illinois said, Jason, we kind of like you. We got an NIL package of $150,000 for your last year. What, let's be honest, what would you have said?
Deuces. Hey, had a great 4 or 5 year stretch here. But deuces. These guys are all friends of mine or whatever. But yeah, I'd have been peace out. And look, I will say this. That would take a guy like me that wanted to be offered by Purdue but wasn't. It may have made me work harder my freshman and sophomore years at Ball State because my freshman year we played Purdue. And so that would have been a date that I would have circled on the calendar, like I got to be in this game, I got to play in this game, I got to prove to the Purdue coaches that I should have been there. So it may have provided some extra motivation as well. Steve, I gotta move. What do you think of North Carolina? Is this the biggest tournament undeserved bid ever?
It helps to be a blue blood. It helps to be a brand. And Jason, over the weekend, before all of this went down, I got a couple of tweets. I think I put my settings on tweets for you, not just followers. I saw at least one or two that was questioning the job security of Hubert Davis and how we should never be on the bubble. We are not deserving. We're not this. We're not that. So I'm thinking, wow, Carolina, the honeymoon's over for Hubert Davis there. Where have you gone, Bill Guthridge, right? And then Sunday, I'm reading all these bubble tweets about how West Virginia is pretty deserving. They look solid. And I read one tweet where out of all the metrics, some guy did a computer program of, okay, I'm going to do my brackets of the projected brackets of the 64 plus the play-in. And I think like 95% had West Virginia in. Less than 20 had Carolina. So, Jason, to your point that you said earlier, this is a television show. And the reality is maybe even an older, chubbier version of Liz Taylor starring in a movie might be better than a younger version of an actress we don't know. As I show my age, I'm not that old, but I couldn't think of anyone. This is about brands and names. And, Jason, to go further, the SEC got 14 teams in it. SEC, man, that's a basketball conference. That's a basketball conference right there.
Steve, have you seen this picture of Bill Belichick and his sugar baby Jordan? Let's put the picture up.
Oh my God!
Do we have the? Yeah, there we go. Is this AI or is this real? Is 73-year-old Bill Belichick really out on a beach somewhere, posing for pictures with his 24-year-old sugar baby. And is this concerning for you?
Bill Parcells needs to give his old protege a call. I mean, is that the Tar Heel way? Because that certainly wasn't the Patriot way. But, I got to give old Billy Boy some credit. She's still pretty strong in the legs, or she's really, really petite. I did not think Belichick had that in him. You're doing squats. You're hitting the squat rack. Look what he's doing. He's doing the press. Yeah, God.
Yeah, what he's doing is probably not as healthy as what I'm doing, but it's probably more fun.
Look, to me, I get it. Bill wants to project that, hey, I'm fun, I'm young, I'm not this curmudgeon. But I argue, wasn't that the mystique of Bill Belichick? That he wasn't any of those things and he made it work? I think there's something to be said about being who you are and embracing your age and aging as gracefully as you can. To me, there is nothing more cringeworthy than to see an older man try way too hard to be way too young.
He has no idea. He's painting a bullseye on her back that she clearly wants. And he's just helping her paint this bullseye. There are predators within his own locker room that will look at these pictures and be like, hey, Bill's got no control. He's got no control over her. And someone will say, I bet you I could get some control over her. There are predators within his own locker room. This is a mistake. I keep going back over and over and over again. This isn't going to work. This is going to be a massive flop. This guy, he's lost his mind.
Can you imagine what the student sections are going to do with that picture in college? Because it's a different crowd. No, it is, Jason. I remember, I think it was one year, and I'm going to relate this to basketball. A certain player for North Carolina State stole a pizza. I think it may have been Chris Washburn. So when he got introduced at a road game, the student sections all snuck in pizza boxes. So when he got introduced and he comes out, pizza boxes just flew all over the court. They've done stuff like the Cameron, the Cameron crazies. That right there, I guarantee you, every ACC school student body has gone to Kinko's and probably made thousands of those pictures. That's gonna be the million meme march. Oh, they're gonna have some fun. And Bill Belichick, one of the things, the tenets of the Patriot way, Jason, was don't say anything or do anything that is bulletin board material. Jason, that's the biggest bulletin board material I've ever seen a coach give to student bodies across the conference.
You know what? In the older or the younger me, the old me, because I'm just sitting here like, I got to get an evaluation, a psychological evaluation of what's going on with Bill Belichick. And this is one of these deals where I would call some of my old friends, Strip Club Rick, that used to be on the Real Talk podcast, and have him come in and just do a psychological analysis of what's going on with Bill Belichick. This is, you know what? I may need to call my boy Troy McSwain and have him come in and just kind of explain. To me, this screams like he has no control, no say-so over her, and I'm the predators out there. And I could name friends of mine that are predators, that are sitting there thinking, you know what, I'm gonna have to go to a North Carolina game, because I'd love to put it on my resume that, I went and had a wonderful weekend with Bill Belichick sugar baby.
Jason, come on, man.
I'm just keeping it real.
Ah, jeez.
And there are other guys out here that know exactly what I'm talking about.
Now, that guy that has the moniker Strip Club, is it because he owned a strip club, or is it because he partook a lot? Explain that.
He partook a lot and knew exactly what he was doing inside of a Las Vegas strip club. Seasoned professional. This is the old, stupid, retarded me. He would come on and give advice on how to operate within the confines of a Las Vegas strip club, and people enjoyed his.
Yeah,
segments.
like like little things like, hey, don't use the ATM there. The service fees are too high. Go to your own bank. Or in fact, go inside and get a lot of ones to begin with. I get it. That's the stuff that I've been told. It's the stuff that I've been told.
Proper cologne for the champagne room. Things like that.
Oh, that's valuable stuff. That is valuable information. We may actually have to give him a guest spot here next week. I'm just saying.
Rick, if you're listening. Anyway, let me move on. Let me steer this ship back on track before I lose my audience. Steve, the Cincinnati Bengals, oh boy, have they paid Tee Higgins and Jamar Chase. I've seen a lot of people disagree with this. I certainly disagree with it. I think here's the highest paid receivers in NFL history. Jamar Chase is now at the top at 40.3, Justin Jefferson 35, CeeDee Lamb 34. Amon-Ra St. Brown, who I've met his dad, 30. Tyreek Hill, 30. Brandon Ayuk, 30. And now Tee Higgins at 28.8. If Joe Burrow is, the second best quarterback in the league, like some people like to argue after Patrick Mahomes, does he need the best receiving duo in history, or does he need a defense that can stop people?
Well, a little bit of both. There is now pressure on Joe Burrow to produce 45 points a game. Not only because of his own contract, what they gave the receivers, the fact is they might give up 38 per game. Now, I saw some tweet, and again, I don't know how legitimate or trusted this source is, but the Bengals may actually be keeping their best pass rusher that had a huge year last year. Okay? That would help. Yes, Trey Hendrickson. I don't know how that works. I know the salary cap is raising, but again, that didn't come from Schefter or Jay Glazer or one of those guys. But this is interesting because I always thought Tee Higgins was the perfect number 2 to Jamar. Now, I'm not saying that he's Alvin Harper, because remember Alvin Harper, Jason, was the perfect complement to Michael Irvin, ventured off, got a big free agent deal to Tampa Bay, and then he disappeared because he simply was not a number 1. Now, my view is T is a more well-rounded receiver than Alvin Harper was, okay? But I think he'd be a good number 1. Don't think he'd be an elite number 1. But as a number 2, we might be talking about the best duo in football, or one of the top 3 or 4. And if you have Joe Burrow, I can make the argument, Jason, okay, if you have Joe Burrow, then load him up with weapons. Load him up with guys that he could feed. You can look at it both ways here.
This will be interesting. A lot of pressure on Joe Burrow, a lot of pressure on the Bengals. I think next year there'll be, Mike Brown's the owner. I guess owners don't really feel pressure, but people will question this strategy. He's overpaying his offensive side of the ball. He's all in on.
I agree. Historically, though, that has been an organization that takes the easy way out financially. Now, maybe this is a sea change for them, but the Bengals offense last year was not the issue. There was at least 3 games that I looked at where I'm like, wow, they could have won that game. That easily could have been a 12-win team, Jason. Of course, they couldn't stop a leaky faucet, so there's still the argument. So the pressure now is on them in a few weeks in the National Football League draft. They're going to have to hit on young defenders and plug and play. So that there's a pressure now that whoever they're drafting, they better play early and often.
Well, we shall see. Steve, final topic here, one of my favorites. ESPN figured out a way to come up with an argument that Caitlin Clark isn't one of the 5 greatest women's college basketball players of all time, and it's because she didn't win a title. Let's watch the clip as ESPN analysts talk themselves out of Caitlin Clark being one of the 5 greatest women's basketball players.
Love Caitlin, love how she's transcended the game. I'm not going to go away from that, but in the open, we said, what makes a top 5 player? Winning. The only strike against Caitlin Clark is that she has not won a national championship. And that is the only thing that you can put against her, because the way she has dominated the record books when she was at Iowa was something you cannot duplicate. She's a 3-time NCAA scoring leader and assist leader, a true point guard for the people, 3-time All-American, 2-time Naismith Player of the Year, 2-time AP Player of the Year, all-time leading scorer. She broke the records of Kelsey Plum and Sabrina. Like, literally, there is nobody who has been such a front-facing name through a direct reflection of her skill set. But how can you be a top 5 player if you have not won a title?
It's a great point, which is why I agree with you. Convince me, Ari. We're switching them back.
Again, we read Cheryl Miller's resume. She's a winner. She's a winner multiple times. Yeah. But, like, I have a really hard time. It's, like, paining me to leave Caitlin off this list because of the record, because of what she's done outside of those 94 feet. She has really thrust women's basketball in the mainstream. She has collected her individual accolades. I
get it. I hear you. I get it.
Hope.
If I pick.
All right, Steve. Caitlin Clark took Iowa to back-to-back national championship games.
I mean, she didn't win, though. She didn't win.
Kate Martin, but Breanna Stewart, who's on this list, played at UConn with a bunch of other pros, a bunch of other WNBA players. This comes down to whether you believe being a part of a stacked team at UConn or South Carolina and winning a national championship, is that more impressive than sticking with your little home school, not surrounded by great talent, and carrying them all the way to the brink of championships back-to-back years? What's more impressive? Doing more with less, or doing the best you can with the best there is?
I mean, Jason, I would argue, and me being the women's college basketball historian that I am, that young lady there in Iowa City did more with less than anybody. And people say, well, she's like Pistol Pete Maravich. Maravich never went to the Final Four or the final game. And look, in my view, because of where I grew up, I am biased and how old I am, you will never tell me there was a better women's basketball player than the great Cheryl Miller. Okay, to the day I die, I will die on that hill. It is Cheryl Miller. But Cheryl Miller had a loaded USC team. She had the McGee sisters, and I believe Cynthia Cooper. That's major league talent, okay? Every other girl, or lady that was listed because they won, they probably had at least 2 or 3 All-Americans or players that probably had long WNBA careers if it was afforded to them. I have a question for you, Jason. Do you believe Larry Bird is an all-time great college player?
Yes.
Okay, well, he didn't win it, though.
Question.
Right, but he didn't win it. Can you name me a single player that he had? Maybe you can't because you're an Indiana guy. But think about this and what's unfair, and I am a Magic Johnson Laker homer, no doubt. But when they say, well, and Magic beat him in the Final Four in 79. Right, okay. Michigan State was a Big Ten team. He also had 2 teammates that were NBA first-round draft choices, in Greg Kelser and Jay Vincent. Okay? Larry Bird had a bunch of accountants, doctors, and lawyers who probably never dribbled a basketball for $1 in their life after their eligibility ran out in Terre Haute, Indiana. Do we not have some nuance to that? Jeez.
I think it was Carl Reed or Carl Nix. Carl Nix, I believe.
Carl Nix. He was a guard. He was a guard.
Yeah.
He was a guard.
Did they Alex Gilbert, Bobby Heaton, I remember the Brad Miley, I remember Steve Reed. But, you know, I got to search the research bank. I got a little assist here off of the internet. But, yeah, I remember Carl Nix for sure.
Yeah.
He was their second leading scorer and was a pretty good guard. Maybe he had a cup of coffee in the NBA. But you're right. Larry Bird did not, compared to what Magic was playing with, it was not even close. But here's something I find interesting in all of this, Steve, is that take the young black woman that was making the argument. I would tend to bet she would make the argument that when it comes to academic performance and why we should let certain people in universities, despite the fact their SAT scores may not be this or that, is they'll say, well, you know, the kind of poverty they had to overcome, they had to do less, or they had to do more with less. And so they can see all the extenuating circumstances around someone, and it elevates their greatness. Like, okay, yeah, maybe they didn't have a 1450 SAT score, but, you know, they came from poverty, they went to a poor school, and so blah, blah, blah. And how that mindset and logic doesn't apply to, hey, she played at Iowa, it's not a powerhouse program. Kate Martin's in the WNBA, but she's not going to be some kind of NBA star or whatever. I just don't understand how you can see someone doing more with less in some aspects, but in this one, you can't see it. You can't give them credit for that.
Yeah, and don't forget the culturally biased SAT score. Remember that? That's first and foremost. But Jason, she listed off like she made All-American such and such time. The Naismith player there. I'm like, well, all of that. So none of that matters because she could not beat a stacked South Carolina team that probably had multiple players. I mean, there have been years, Jason. I remember one of the best jobs I've ever seen of coaching a team was Utah in '98 with Rick Majerus. And I remember thinking, wow, they had Andre Miller, and I don't even think Keith Van Horn was on that team, but they just had a lot of guys like Doliak. They had solid guys. And they were beating Kentucky for most of that game, and they ran out of bodies. And Kentucky was Kentucky. Tubby Smith had a great team. There wasn't a loaded Kentucky team, but it was still very, very talented. And I remember thinking, Rick Majerus, in his own way, won a national title. It's not going to be official, but just to get that far with that Utah team says something. If there's no nuance then, well, in that case, there should never be a discussion then Bill Russell's the greatest athlete of all time in American sports. No one's winning 12, Jason. It's over. The guy won in the Olympics. The guy won at USF. He won every year in Boston, basically. So what? There's no nuance all of a sudden? I get it, but I don't get it.
Steve, I get it. That we're out of time. We're done here. Thank you so much. Great job as always. We'll play tomorrow, and we'll see you tomorrow.
Freedom. Came like a fighter, striking like a ladder, making all this moves for freedom. I want freedom. No negotiation, my sister, no relation. We all just wanna have freedom. Sitting on the corner, never been alone. I'm breaking my back for freedom. Blessed, we are living, get back. We are receiving, all deceiving. We all wanna be free. We want freedom.